How could Shedeur Sanders news affect the Chicago Bears draft board? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, we now know that the Chicago Bears are bringing in Kaleb Johnson after bringing in Omarion Hampton for a top 30 visit. What could this mean for the Chicago Bears in the pursuit of a running back in this year's draft? We're going to discuss it all and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Darrell Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be in. With that being said, let's go to get into this content for today. And everything's going on around the draft right now. There's so much around it, so much conversation around this point in time when you look at it. And that's what just comes down to some surprise here for the Chicago Bears, right? And the most recently, there's talk around Shedeur Sanders and what that could mean for him. Right now, there's been reported late yesterday that the Giants do plan to work out Shedeur Sanders. They are drafting at number 3. If Shedeur goes as high as number 3, it could completely shake up the draft board, and we could see what ends up happening there, right? So if the Chicago Bears, who aren't focused on quarterback at all, right, when it comes down to it, if a quarterback goes in the first 9 picks, we'll see what that does for the Bears and their board overall, right? Shedeur going at number 3 will cause a pretty big ripple effect throughout the entirety of the NFL draft that could not only impact the Chicago Bears, but many players as well, right? It does, when you look at it, it could create an even stronger possibility that one of the top offensive tackles will slip to the Bears at number 10, right? Of course, you're looking out for Will Campbell. That's a guy that we've talked a lot about potentially being there for the Chicago Bears, right? And that right now he's slated to go anywhere between number 5 to number 9, right? But if you look at that, right, and if Shedeur Sanders is taking early in this draft, and then Ashton Jeanty, another player who could go early as far as number 6, it could really push back one of those tackles falling to the Chicago Bears, and it could help clear up that question that a lot of people have in regards to the Chicago Bears and what they're going to do at number 10 spot with one of those tackles. And we've heard as well, when you pair this in with what we heard yesterday as well, right, that the Bears are considering Kelvin Banks at number 12, at number 10 as well, which again is something you guys know how I feel about Kevin Banks when it comes down to it. He's a guy that he has some bull rush issues himself. But one thing that the Bears would be betting on is that with having Dan Rouchar here, who's considered one of the best offensive line coaches in the game of football, and you look at how he's turned, talented blockers that are working with a little bit of talent and turn them into perennial Pro Bowlers. While Kelvin Banks does have a little bit of rawness around his game and around the edges there, that you bring in a young player with the upside that he has, it is what it is. You look at Banks in his comparison to Christian Darrisaw as well, which is, I think, a really good comparison there. He became a Pro Bowler as well. He played at a Pro Bowl level. And so maybe the Bears are hoping that they can find the same trajectory for Kevin Banks Jr. if that ends up being the case. But I think this also plays into why you're seeing the Bears bring in running backs for so many top 30 visits. Omarion Hampton came in yesterday, which we talked about. We'll get into a little bit more there. Kaleb Johnson's coming in as well. But don't overlook the ripple effect that Shedeur Sanders, if he does end up going early in this draft, that it could affect it. And, the Bears, when it comes down to it, we've heard that if Will Campbell's there at number 10, right, this goes back to over a month ago. We heard that if Will Campbell's there at number 10, that's who the Bears will draft. And, I know people have made things about Will Campbell and his arm length. Like I said, I don't think that's going to be an issue with him playing tackle. But even if it does, Joe Thuney is playing guard right now. We don't know how long he's going to be in the league. So even if Will Campbell does have to eventually make the move to guard, we could have a spot right there gearing up ready for him. And I don't want to hear nothing about nobody who says anything. I'm concerned about taking a player at number 10 if we have to switch their positions. Guess what? You're taking them at number 10 because of their talent. And because of their talent and even with what he can do as a pass blocker, even if you do have to move him to guard, that talent, that intelligence, that technique, even though it has to change a little bit in moving to the interior offensive line, but it's still there. It's still all there, right? And you look at it, even like nobody's saying that Will Campbell can't be effective if he has to move to guard. That's not even a conversation here. The conversation is just, will he eventually have to make the move to guard? But there's been no conversation around, oh, well, he's going to all of a sudden, if he be moved to guard, that's going to change the way that you view his trajectory. He still is a extremely talented offensive lineman that can outright just get shit done. And that's the guys that you need there for the Bears. Right now, again, I don't share necessarily that concern of him moving to tackle, having to move to guard anyway. But, it seems like more and more that Will Campbell falling to the Bears at number 10, if you even want to look at it as falling, is not something that's outside the realm of possibility here for the Chicago Bears. And like we said with many things with the Bears may have to ask themselves a tough question, right? And so, hearing that, the Bears brought in Omarion Hampton, me and Bobby talked about that yesterday in kind of an emergency live stream in regards to that. Like, I like Hampton, and I do think that Hampton would be a trade back. I don't think that the Bears should take Hampton at number 10. I think even if you identify him as the guy that you want to get, you trade back, you get more assets, you bet on some of the tackles later on in the draft, and you have a chance there, right? The Bears, as I've said many times, have put themselves in this situation to where they can do a lot, right? And so, Omarion Hampton, I know there are a lot of Bears fans that are very happy at Omarion Hampton coming in here for a workout. Jordan Schultz reported that. Fox Sports reported it first, that they brought in Omarion Hampton. And Hampton has a great skill set. He's probably one of the better dual threat running backs in this game. I just look at the gap between Hampton and some of the other players, that can go in the second round is not that high personally. But if you're trading back, right, and getting even another asset, one could be said that that's making the most of your situation then. So, there's a lot of up in air right now around the Chicago Bears. There's going to be a lot of talk on what the Bears should or will do with their draft selections and the draft picks. And the thing is, I think when you're looking at all of this and bringing it all together, the thing that's really the prevailing thought here is that nobody knows, right? Nobody knows exactly what the Chicago Bears are going to do with these positions. Nobody knows exactly what position they're going to target first or target later or feel comfortable trading back for. We don't know. The Bears have a great situation here. With being able to go out there and get whoever they identify as those guys, right? And so, it's a lot when it comes down to it, right? And so I want to talk about this article going in next. It kind of highlights that, right? And this one was written by Ryan Heckman, who wrote this, and the title of it is 8 Bears 2025 Draft Targets to Put Caleb Williams Over the Top. Now, I don't know if it's necessarily that. You got to sensationalize a little bit for your headlines, but they have some players. There's some that we've talked about heavily, some that we haven't. I want to spend a little bit of time on this. Of course, number one, they have Ashton Jeanty, right? And, everybody's talked ad nauseum about Ashton Jeanty. He's the best back in this draft, period, right? That is what it is. And when you think about how Ben Johnson can use a talent like Ashton Jeanty, that's where your mind starts going at. That's where the wheels start turning, and that's where you can get very creative and very special in some places as well. And so, him being on number one on this list, not surprising at all. We've talked about him a lot. Next up, Will Campbell. Just talked about Will Campbell. They did point out the questions here. Is he a tackle? Is he a guard? And I also point out the fact of kind of what I said. Truthfully, it doesn't matter. That's what's said in this article, right? Will Campbell, by many people, is the best offensive lineman in this draft, right? Period. And he's going to have a hell of a career. There's not many people that doubt the career that he's going to have. So even talking about him as potentially needing to move to guard, there's still no question about it. He's going to be damn good. And everybody, let me not say everybody, most people are along that same thought process. He's going to be damn good at the NFL level. You need guys who can protect. You need guys who can block. You need guys who can be dogs on that offensive line. Will Campbell shaped up to be able to be all that for the Chicago Bears. Next up, Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU. Now, this is a guy that has not been talked a lot about amongst the Chicago Bears, right? If we're talking tight ends, typically the conversation goes to Tyler Warren. And so this is kind of, not to say this is the first time that I've seen him brought up, but it's just somebody who's not talked about as much as like a Tyler Warren, right? And Mason Taylor, when you look at him and what he can bring to the Bears team, 6'5", right? Legit size he brings 255 pounds, 546 yards receiving, and two touchdowns last year. But what Mason Taylor potentially brings here is another guy that can also block as well, right? And I also think that Mason Taylor is more of a guy that you can pair with Cole Kmet rather than being somebody that replaces Cole Kmet like a Tyler Warren possibly will be, right? And so that's what it comes down to, right? So Mason Taylor would be a tight end that can still be used in the passing game. Absolutely, make no mistake about it. But maybe it could be used in more specialized blocking scenarios and maybe be a better kind of pairing with Cole Kmet if they want to complement Cole Kmet. Again, if they want to replace Cole Kmet and eventually move off of that contract, then Tyler Warren's probably the better pick here. But Mason Taylor could be a really good complement in that tight end room with Cole Kmet. And then the Bears could have two really damn good tight ends there that can be interchangeable and depending on the situation that you're looking at. Next up on the list, they have Omarion Hampton, a guy we've talked about a lot as well over the last couple of days. Omarion Hampton is one of the best running backs in this draft. Now, again, the reason why my knock for Omarion Hampton just comes down to I don't think there's much of a gap between him and a Quishon Judkins or Travion Henderson. I don't think there's much of a gap there. So where you can use your first-round pick to do something else, you can get a comparable talent in the second round personally. But if the Bears look at Omarion Hampton there and he's a guy, again, trading back, being able to get him, all those things, it makes a lot of sense. There are some questions on if he can fall in the second round, and that's where things get creative at, right? If Omarion Hampton does, which I don't expect, but if he does fall into the second round of this draft, that's where okay, now we're starting to look at things a little bit different, but we'll see what happens. If it wasn't for Genty, Omarion Hampton would be the clear number one running back in this draft. So again, you can't necessarily get mad at that one, right? Next up, Nick Imawari. Imawari. This is the safety out of South Carolina. I did cover him a couple of weeks ago on one of the draft boards that I did. And there's not a lot. I've been one of the guys that have been talking about safety being a need for the Bears in this draft. Now, I don't think that you need a draft at number 10, right? I don't think you need to do that. I think like Billy Bowman Jr., a guy that I'm extremely high on in this draft, I think he would be the perfect safety for the Bears. And you can get him in round 3, right? And so because of that, I don't know, like going safety at number 10 would be such an outside the box thing based off what the common conversation is around it. But with Kevin Byard's contract up at the end of the year, Jaquan Brisker's injury history that he brings, the importance of the safety and Dennis Allen's system and how he needs to use versatile safeties and defensive backs, maybe you can make a case for that. But again, we'll see what happens there. The next guy up, Amand Mimbow. Now, you guys know, this is a guy that in my initial mock draft, I wanted the Bears to draft at number 10. His draft combine has really pushed him up to where a lot of people expect him to go within the top 6 to 7 picks in this draft, right? And so because of that, it comes down to him that it doesn't seem like he's going to be on the board for the Chicago Bears. But as we know, all it takes is one thing to go crazy and change in the draft. Armand Mimbow is instantly a better tackle than Braxton Jones. Instantly. His speed, his strength, the ability to the fact that you cannot bull rush Mimbow, all those things, I think he would instantly take that starting tackle position. So therefore, I would never be mad at Mimbow. And that's a guy that, again, when nobody was talking about him, I had him in my initial mock of the Bears drafting him at number 10. That's how high I look at the talent of Mimbow. And while Will Campbell is listed as, and many people think he's the best offensive lineman in this draft, Mimbow's ceiling, I think, is just as high. People just aren't talking about it, whether it's narrative or whatever else that's keeping it from being talked about. I think Mimbow is going to be a pretty damn good offensive lineman in this draft and a tackle at that. The next guy that they have on this list is Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas. And we know the importance of the slot receiver under Ben Johnson's offense. I talked a little bit about it yesterday, right? The slot receivers tend to be somebody who statistically gets some of the best numbers in a Ben Johnson system. 58 receptions, 987 yards last year, 9 touchdowns he had last year as well. This is a guy that he brings the size, he brings the speed. At that slot position, he can be really dangerous for the Chicago Bears and pairing him with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore. But going wide receiver at number 10, while he checks a lot of boxes, I just don't expect. But I do think this, right? While Matthew Golden's got tons of buzz in the first round, he's not going to go at number 10, right? So this would be somebody that you trade back or you hope is going to slip to round 2. If he slips to round 2 and the Bears get him, it could be a great pick there, right? If he's there at number 39, amazing pick for the Chicago Bears. They point this out in this article as well. The speed that he has is something that Ben Johnson would absolutely utilize. 4.3 speed in the draft combine. So, I think when it comes down to that, we'll see what happened there. The Detroit Lions have already met with him as well, which is Ben Johnson's former team. So we'll see what happens there. Next up, Ariante Ursary, the offensive tackle out of Minnesota. This is another guy here that is a round 3 target for the Chicago Bears, and he's a guy that would come in and he'll give Braxton Jones a run for his money and competition at that tackle position. I won't necessarily say that he'd win out against Braxton Jones at that tackle position, but I do think he is somebody that makes sense for the Bears, makes sense for the needs, makes sense at a position of need for the Bears, and I wouldn't be too mad at the Bears picking him up. I think that this is a really good option here for the Chicago Bears at tackle, picking up a pretty damn good tackle in the 3rd round. Again, maximizing that value. I think that's a really big thing there, right? So we'll see what the future does hold. Overall, as it keeps being highlighted, the Bears have a lot. This is a deep draft, y'all. And I don't think if people really realize, because it's not talked about as much, of just how deep this draft is. This draft is really deep, and it's deep at all positions that the Chicago Bears need. That's where you can find some special things at. And let's hope that the Bears do that, man. Listen, Ryan Poles, he's going to do his thing. The Bears front office are really going to do their thing there. Ian Cunningham, they're going to try to figure it out. And let's hope that the Bears walk out of this draft with everything that they need, and we can continue to be excited about what the Bears have been bringing this offseason. But to talk about excitement, one of the Bears' recent acquisitions before we get out of here, Jonah Jackson. Jonah Jackson is a guy, man, that, we were really happy of him, acquiring him. Of course, you had some Bears fans that were bringing some questions because of the injury, the production when he got moved to a different position. But Jonah Jackson said this: all that matters is how you bounce back. I'm excited to get back to it and string a full season together and get a damn ring. Right? So that's what you love to hear. That he says this: screw the personal accolades. It's to win it all. The Bears are such a historic franchise. They've been there before. We're excited to be part of the turnaround. I've been part of a turnaround before, and we can definitely do it again. You love to have people in your building that believe in you, right? And we've talked a lot about, and this is one of those things that's more of a rah-rah thing. It's not really a tangible thing that you can put stats to until football really starts. But having people that believe that you can win it now, right? And Ben Johnson saying this, right? Echoing the sentiments of your head coach is saying, we're here to win it now. Like, we're trying to win it now. We're trying to win right now, right? This isn't a coaching staff and a front office and a team that's coming in saying, oh, we're 2 or 3 years away from being a year or 2 away. No, they're coming in saying, hey, we're trying to do everything right now to win football games now. We're not trying to think about the future. Not to say we're not thinking about the future, but we're not planning on or waiting and winning until we get to a certain level. We're trying to come in here and win football games now. And you made moves with players that have been part of franchises that have won. And so you brought in a head coach with a team that has won, that was one of the best in the division, the same division that we're in, right? And that's what the Bears are trying to do here. I know I say practice patience, right? I always say that because the last thing I want is to excitement to become expectations. You don't want to let excitement become expectations, but having realistic expectations and goals for your team, that's also how you get and you push forward, right? And so that's what the Bears are going to have to try to do in this season. It's about how much can you win? How much can you push forward and continue to win in this season, right? And then how do you take that and go forward and then do other things with and build upon that so you can continue winning in the future? That's what the Bears are trying to do here. That's what they should be trying to do here. Let's win now. Let's get it done. Let's go into next offseason and let's see what we can do. But getting through this season, right? They've already done a really good job at fixing so many of the glaring holes with this team. Now you got a chance to fix a few more while also adding depth at some positions as well and planning for the future. That's what the Bears need to do here, right? They already got some future pieces, right? Looking at how Karen Amagaje takes a step up in year 2, that's going to be big, right? Seeing Darnell Wright continue to develop, that's going to be big and something that we hope for, right? Kaleb, Rome, these guys, right? You want to see Kyler Gordon, now he steps up. But this team believes in each other. This team believes in themselves. You see how many people showed up for the voluntary minicamp that we already had, right? Like those things are things that build winning habits. And you have to set those expectations. And we finally have a coaching staff that not only seems like they're going to hold themselves accountable, but because they hold themselves accountable, it's going to add accountability to the players. It's hard. It would be hard for a coach like Matt Eberflus to really hold a team accountable when he didn't really hold himself accountable, right? And so you're seeing that change. The Bears are changing the culture. And that's the thing that really feels like something sustainable could come out of this because it's a culture shift, a culture change that's happening in Chicago. And by changing the culture, hopefully that means you're changing the results on the football field and they feed into each other and vice versa. That's what you want to see from this team. That's what you want to see continue. And let's hope that we get it, man. I really want to have a winning team this year. I would love nothing more than talk about a winning season for the Chicago Bears. Now, can we go 9-8? Can we do that, right? That's what we want to see this year for the Chicago Bears. It's just finished with a winning season, and then let's build upon that and what's going to happen next after that. Let's compete in our division. Let's compete in our conference. Let's be a solid team from top to bottom. You got to have good coaching to have that, and the Bears seem like they finally have that in position, and let's see how it's going to continue to go. But that's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following us at Shy Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.